Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The Buddha was walking on a road, and behind him was a very evil man. He was a mass murderer. And he screamed at the Buddha, not knowing who he was, "Stop!" And the Buddha kept walking. And the man kept screaming, "Stop!" And the Buddha didn't stop. So the man ran up to him and grabbed him, and he said, "Why didn't you stop when I told you to stop?" And the Buddha said, "I stopped years ago. You're the one who's still going. You're going and committing vile acts against other people. I gave all that up. I stopped everything." In this world, we are either going or we're stopping. And stopping means a lot of different things. And there's always the difficulty of what should be the extent of our involvement. When do we get involved, and when do we hold back from involvement? And it takes wisdom to understand that point. It takes wisdom to be able to know when to move and when to halt. We deal with regularly the nature of our existence. And the nature of our existence is such that we have old age. It comes upon us, every one of us. We have illness. It comes upon us, every one of us. And then we pass. So these things are commonplace to man. And we have to deal with these. We can't stop any of these things. We can't control any of these things. And it's like that in the world. There are things we can control and things we can't control. And there are also things we try to control that we shouldn't try to control. Things that we think should be controlled that shouldn't be controlled. We have to gauge the amount of power that we wish to use to influence the world. Is our ego such that our own ideas of what's real need to be pressed against humanity, need to be sent against humanity, need all of humanity to accept them? And if they don't accept our ideas, can we leave people alone? Can we disengage from the ones who don't want to be like us? Or does that create an internal conflict for us? Well, as you go around the world, that question is answered quite differently. In some places, there is no freedom of religion. There's just conformity. And if conformity doesn't exist, there is punishment for that non-conformity, and there's difficulty for that non-conformity. In other places, freedom of religion exists, and people are free to worship in any way that they choose. Now, in our heads, we also have to come to a conclusion about that kind of conformity. Do we acknowledge everyone's right to worship as they please, or do we also feel that there needs to be conformity towards a certain way? The Quran says, quite simply, there is no obligation in religion. There's no force in religion. It is a personal, free choice. But immediately after the Prophet's death, Abu Bakr started what were called the Wars of Apostasy. The tribes said, our agreement was with Muhammad. Muhammad's dead, so we're done with our agreement. And Abu Bakr said, your agreement was with God, and God doesn't die, and then went to war against all of them to try and bring them back in the fold. So from the onset, the idea of there is no obligation or there is no force in religion was not taken very seriously. We have to create for ourselves a framework, an ethos as to our integration with other people. We have to be able to accept people without prejudice as to their color, race, creed, or religion. This is supposed to be the framework of the American government, that these things are supposed to be self-evident. But right from the beginning, there was hypocrisy within the statement because we had a whole section of the country that had slaves, and we ignored all of that as we were writing these flowery words in the Constitution. Eventually, the country went to war in order to correct this. But we have to correct this ourselves. God placed a soul within each man. God is radiant, and in this radiance, he gave off souls that became people, became humans. This is his act of creation. This is how we have souls. God also sent 124,000 or 128,000 prophets into the world to teach man what appropriate action is and how to act appropriately. Well, one of the things that happened is people clung to their prophets as opposed to clinging to the truth, as opposed to clinging to the word of God. And they began to hold their prophet as the penultimate, as opposed to every other prophet. They began to hold the truth that they got through the channel that it came to them as the penultimate, as opposed to all others. My sheikh used to say, that which separates you from other men separates you from God. And it's a simple proposition with a simple understanding. If every man has a soul, then every man has God within him. And if you push a man away, you are pushing God away. If you have prejudice towards a man, you have prejudice towards God. If you cannot accept a man or a woman, you have prejudice towards God. We need to realize the essence of this understanding. We have to realize what it means, and we have to incorporate it into our being. We have to incorporate it so that we can walk with love. Sufism is called the path of love. However, prejudice doesn't love. Differences don't love. Hate doesn't love. Animosity doesn't love. And you can't have love and animosity. You can't have love and jealousy. You can't have love and hate. So we have to adjust our way of thinking so that everything that stops love from germinating from within us is dissipated. And this is simple exercise. Ask yourself, what is it that stops me from loving? What is it that makes me angry? What is it that pushes my buttons and puts me in the way of animosity? And how long do I hold on to this animosity? Emotions are tricky things. Sometimes they overwhelm us and we lose control. We can't handle them. In other words, we can't control them. We can't put them in check. They overwhelm us and then we go with them. Emotions were once described as being in a stagecoach with a set of horses pulling the coach and the driver losing the reins. And then the horses just ran away and they continue to run. And how do you stop that? Well, it's difficult to stop it. You have to climb out of the coach while the coach is moving, get to the seat where the driver is, somehow get the reins and pull it. Well, it's almost that hard to control your own emotions when your emotions get control of you. Now, the place where we can work on this the most is with the ones who are closest to us. The ones who are closest to us usually set us off. Now, the question is, when you get set off, how long are you in the off state? How long does it take to get back to normative? How long does it take to overcome the animosity and get back to love? We have to look at that. And we have to be able to analyze it and figure it out. I mean, sometimes people won't talk to their relatives for 10, 15, 20 years. And then they'll have a reconciliation. But what took 20 years to reconcile? Uh, they came late to dinner. They didn't bring an appropriate present to a wedding. All these bizarre things set people off. But one of the things that needs to be understood is that it's not so much the act that sets people off, it's the fact that we have within us something that wants to be set off. There is a certain joy in anger. There is a certain perverse joy in animosity and hatred. And this is the devil's work. He, he gives people a certain sense of power when they're angry. He gives people a certain sense of power when they have animosity. He makes people think they are in charge when they are that way. But in truth, they have lost control. And who have they lost control to? They've lost control to Satan. And Satan is not on our side. Satan does whatever it is he can to bring us over to the inappropriate way of action. And what is self-evident when you look closely at what the qualities of Satan do is that these qualities all have to do with separation. They all have to do with differences. They all have to do with pushing people away or controlling people. They don't have anything to do with unity and bringing everything together. Now, in the United States, Satan is allowed to walk down the street. And if you don't want to join him, you don't have to. In other countries, if they saw Satan walking down the street, they would kill him. But Satan's smart enough to know where he can walk down the street and where he can't walk down the street. So what does Satan do in the countries that he can't walk down the street on? He becomes a cleric. He works in the church, or he works in the mosque, or he works in the religious institutions. And from there, he proclaims his insanity, and people buy it because they don't have the ability to recognize the truth and differentiate it from authority. Authority becomes the truth as opposed to the truth being the truth. And it's also this perverse feeling that people have that they need to hate and they need to be enraged. And this pops up all over the world. You see, you see riots everywhere over all kinds of different things. All kinds of different things bring about riots. And what brought them on? Mass hysteria. And mass hysteria is something we all need to stay away from. We all need to be able to control ourselves. We need to be able to control the way we are. What we do is we all have certain fears, and these fears have to do with things that are inevitable. They have to do with things that are the nature of existence. They have to do with the way things are. So people fear death, but there's nothing you can do about it. So they need diversions. So the diversions from death become 1,001 different things. You divert yourself in many, many different ways. And what we need to do is to divert ourselves into the qualities of God, because everything else that we divert ourselves to is not eternal, but the qualities of God are eternal. So if we truly wish to overcome death, if we truly wish to be other than one who is subject to death, we have to get to the point where we aren't subject to judgment and where we enter into the space of eternality before death. And this is one of the proclamations that Sufi make. To die before death is the Sufi way of life. And what does it mean to die before death? And we have to consider what that means because it's a very important statement and it answers so many questions. When we are alive, we have all these things we worry about. We have all these things we have to take care of. We worry about our livelihood. We worry about maintaining our income. We worry about where we live. We worry about the political situation. We worry about the world situation. We worry about the world. When we pass, we are no longer part of the world. We are part of an eternal understanding, an eternal phase of being, which is different than this temporary world. And it's very difficult for man to enter into that state where he is in the state of non-worldliness, where he is in the state of not being attached to the world, where he is in the state of not being involved within the world, where he is, in essence, dead to the world. Yet, even though we're dead to the world, we're still here. And there comes a time when we have to act within the world. And there are things we have to act about. And this was always an interesting phenomenon. Bawa, my sheikh, didn't care very much about the world. wasn't very interested in the world. And he would tell me that straight out. One time he was visiting us in in one of the homes that we lived in along the shore, and I had prepared a trip. He always came with a lot of people, and we had a meeting that evening, but there was time between lunch and the meeting, so I had prepared a trip to take them to a wildlife sanctuary. And I told Bawa this, and he said, "Well, that's all right for the children, but I don't care about any of these things. These have no meaning to me. I'm here to spread the word, but take the children." So the world had very little relevance to him because he was of the world, but not in the world simultaneously. He was here, but not here. I took my father to see him when my father was very ill. And after they met, my father told me he's not from this world. He's not of this world. He's from another time altogether, from another species of being. He's like from the prophets or something like that. My father saw immediately that he was not from here. Now imagine, I and many others spent time with a physical manifestation that was different than all of us were. He was different in that he was here but not here simultaneously. He was different in that he did not get his energy from the world. He got his energy from somewhere else. He was here, but he did not get any satisfaction from what was given here. He got his satisfaction from Allah's qualities. He got his satisfaction from being merciful. He got his satisfaction from being compassionate. He got his satisfaction from being in love. And he displayed this constantly. And because he was different like that, people came to see him and were satisfied just sitting in his presence. There was no more needed than that. We didn't need discourse. We didn't need conversation. We just needed to be close to the resonance, close to that which was adjacent to truth. And he was adjacent to truth. And we are adjacent to truth if we allow ourselves to be adjacent to truth. Everybody is looking for heaven. Everybody's looking to understand heaven. Everybody is looking to be integrated into heaven. And there are lots of songs that portray this. There's an old spiritual that says, everybody's talking about nobody's going there, heaven, which puts in perspective that this isn't such an easy thing to understand or to do. And then Dylan wrote, knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. All of us are knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Everybody wants to get in. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to understand. Well, you can't have your world and heaven too. You can't have your animosities and heaven too. You can't have your prejudices and heaven too. You can't have race and heaven too. You can't have religious differences and heaven too. If you really truly want to understand the nature of truth, then understand that God rules through love. And everything is existent because of his love. So if you want to integrate within that understanding, you have to love. And if you don't love, then you are an anathema to that which is love. You are other than that which is love. And what we see when we go around the world, and we see this everywhere, is people will preach as if they had authority from God, but they're not preaching love. They're preaching other than love. They're preaching power. They're preaching differences. They're preaching animosity. They're preaching differences. People have a real difficulty not pointing their finger at somebody else and talking about how they are wrong. But every time you point your finger, you have another finger pointing at you. And you need to understand that. And we need to get away from that. We need to bring ourselves to a place where we are content and integrated with serenity and compassion and love. This contentment and this integration comes about through discipline, one pointedness, and really, really committing oneself to not being part of the mass eruptions that go on in politics, in wars, in religion, and in everything else. Can we can we bring peace to ourselves? If we can bring peace to ourselves, peace will come to others because of us. The resonance of peace is such that when other people step into that resonance, it's felt, and people can feel that resonance. I myself became addicted to that resonance of peace, to that resonance of love. And before I moved to be close to the Sheikh, I used to travel about 75 miles 3 or 4 times a week to be able to sit there for 2 hours to be engulfed in that resonance, to have that resonance overwhelm me, to put me at peace, to put me at ease. Now, all of us are in a position where we are being taught about that, and we understand that. And all of us have the opportunity to do that. But the question is, do we? Or do we keep ourselves in a state of bewilderment, in a state of being upset, and in a state of pointing our fingers? Nobody controls your peace but yourself. Nobody controls your peace except you do. And uh, Bawa said one time, even if the sun stopped shining, you shouldn't lose your faith in the truth and your faith in God. In no way do we depend on the material existence to drive the truth of who we are, because the truth of who we are is not of this material existence. Billy Graham, an American evangelist, was giving a lecture or a speech, and he once said, when you go to a religious library, there are thousands of books. And he said the reason there are thousands of books is because people can't understand the initial truth, which is God is one. He said, since they can't understand that, books have to be written to try and explain that. And then books are written to explain the books that write about it. We need to understand unity. And even if we can't understand it, we need to believe in it. We have to make believe we understand it until we understand it. And then one day we will understand it. We should also know that things will be revealed to us in the appropriate time for us. And we need to have faith that things will be revealed to us. So we shouldn't be anxious about what we don't know. We shouldn't be anxious about what we don't understand. We will understand. It will all be shown to us in good time. We have to be open to it So when it is shown to us, we are in a receptive mood as opposed to a mood which blocks receptivity, which blocks truth. When we have preconceived notions about anything, those preconceived notions stop the truth from penetrating us. They stop the truth from coming into us because our mind blocks the truth with its preconceived notions. A few days ago, I told you the story of the man who drew a picture of the Khidr Nabi and put it in his pocket. And this is the eternal prophet. And then he went around looking for him. Finally, he came to a town after 20 years where they said he was there. He walked into the room and he met him. He pulled the picture out of his pocket, didn't look like the picture, left because that wasn't him. It wasn't his preconceived notion. We have to be open to understandings that are going to be beyond our imagination. Now, hold on to that thought. We have to be open to understandings that are beyond our imagination. Our imagination is limited. God is not limited. Our thought process is limited. God is not limited. So, do we depend on ourselves or do we depend on God? If we depend on ourselves to know, we're going to be disappointed. But if we depend on God to show us, then we will not be disappointed and we will come into the truth because Allah has chosen to show it to us. It is all in His hands. He is all that exists, and our separate existence isn't real. Our separate existence is our imagination. Our separate existence is a hallucination. Our separate existence is a construct of our mind and our senses. But there will come a time for each of us when our mind and our senses, sight, speech, hearing, touch, will all disappear. And when they disappear, we will become closer to the truth because the truth doesn't have form. The truth is not elemental. The truth can't be weighed and measured. The truth is. And we can understand that. When we are in love, we are different than when we're not in love. When we are in a state of mercy, we are different than we're not in a state of mercy. Yet, you can't quantify mercy. You can't weigh mercy. You can't measure mercy or compassion or love in the way you weigh, measure, or describe material things. It's entirely different. We have to take on a set of understanding where we now are cognizant of that which is unseen. We are cognizant of that which has no form. We are cognizant of that which the world can't quantify. Scientists spend their life trying to quantify everything. And because of that, they remove themselves from that which is not quantifiable. There are things that are self-evident, like love, yet you can't quantify it. We need to stop quantifying things. We need to stop saying, this is the way it should be. We need to be in a state where we are in love, in justice, in mercy, and flow with that justice, love, and mercy, and be part of that as we go along through this world, as we live our lives. Live a life of love, live a life of giving, live a life of service towards others, and We release ourselves from all the anxiety of being ourselves. When we are helping others, we have given up the relationship that we constantly have of worrying about ourselves. Now we're giving out. And what's the difference? The difference is that God gives. And the more we give, the more we're involved on behalf of others, the more service we do, the more godlike we are. And it is our function to become godlike. This is the duty that's been given to us. We have been commanded to become godlike within this life. We have been commanded to take on his qualities and show his qualities in this life. We have been commanded to be aids to the world, to be the ones who bring about peace, the ones who bring about compassion and mercy and serenity to mankind. We have been commanded to do this work. Each of us must become a bearer of God's truth. This is the true work. Anything less means that we are involved in the world and of the world. So when we pray, we should pray that we become open to God's qualities and they integrate within us and that they shine from us as a beacon. And this beacon helps the rest of humanity, that we become ones who are known for their ability to bring peace to situations, that we are known to bring mercy to situations, that when we step in the room, kindness steps in the room, that when we step in a room, love steps in a room, that when we step in the room, serenity steps in the room, that we are the ones who bring God's qualities. And we must ask that these qualities grow and grow and grow within us. And we must pray, God, please bring these qualities into our being. Please allow them to grow in our being. Please make them that which rules us, not the world. And may that be so for each and every one of us, where God is our ruler, not the world. Amin. Amin. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.